Now, are you there, Sophie?
I'm here. How are you, Dom?
Oh, my God. It's only been almost 20 years since I've said hello to you.
Really? No way.
It is.
I think it's 20 years since I met you. I don't know if it's 20 years since I said hello, but hey.
It is. And 20 years ago, we were sitting at a little cafe in Sydney town, and you were just about to leave overseas to meet up with a very special person. We won't go into that one, but at the time, I just met you from a very good friend of mine called Peter Ciani, and you just launched your CD called Colliding Worlds, which was 20 years ahead of everybody's time, I believe me, because one of those tracks I play over and over and over on my show, and they love the Peace and Harmony track. But before I go on, I've got to tell people what they were saying about Sophie 20 years ago, and then we can talk about today. Described as a passionate, fearless and intriguing transformational artist, Sophie fuses exotic, melodic and rhythmic sounds to create an utterly unique, high-energy concert, leaving you transfixed from start to finish. Sophie commands the stage with power, charisma, without boundaries, and this is a flamed beauty. Of course, she's a violinist, can lead that audience to a place where classical meets pop, rock, and hip-hop. The rest is easy. This girl is set to leave her mark in the international scene. This was written by Daily Telegraph. You had writers everywhere talking about you 20 years ago. That was 20 years, and then it says here, this is the bit that I really want to tell you about. It says, the violinist, singer, composer, Sophie has been described by Daily Telegraph Australia as an inimitable, but one of the few who deserves, this is the bit I want to talk to you about, a title of diva. And today, 20 years later, don't tell me you're not a diva, because you are. So I was right 20 years ago how good this lady's going to be. Welcome to Alive 90.5 microphone, Sophie Armstrong. How are you?
Thanks, Dom. I am doing great. Thank you. Yeah, I've got a little bit of jet lag. As you know, I've been in Canada for the past 10 years, and we're just here visiting family, and yeah, who knows, I might come back for some shows next year. It's kind of been a wild ride since COVID. You know, all musicians haven't been performing as much as usual, but I'm really excited about our recent release, Trapeze, and the one we did right before COVID. I was touring then, called Unvanquished, and yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's been fun, and I'm just so happy to be visiting, my home country.
And you know what? I've just realised that I remember saying to you, when you become big, Sophie, and you will be big because you're such a talented artist, don't lose your roots. And here she is talking to a little DJ that doesn't get paid on a community station, and it's great to have you on board.
Oh, thank you. I remember when you used to play my stuff when I was just getting going, and no one else was playing it. So, appreciate you and thank you. And it's great to be chatting.
It'd be not wrong of me not to mention to the people a lot of the things you've been doing. She has performed all over the world to dignitaries, Crown Prince of Dubai, Sheikh Mohammed, and at the Emirates, and Brazil, Bahrain, royal family, the Australian ambassador of Turkey. It goes on and on and on. And I believe you're one of the very few violinists that Crown Prince and Princess Mark Frederick of Denmark asked to play at their castle. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I actually got to play for Crown Prince Frederick and Crown Prince Mary in, I think it was 2011. It was a special Australian event. It was the opening of Sculptures by the Sea, which is an Aussie event that they launched in Bondi, I believe. And they, Princess Mary brought it to Denmark, and so I played at the opening event for them. And actually, I remember that I was so jet lagged, and they had so many instructions about how I should and shouldn't curtsy that I completely forgot. I did my usual bow and then walked off, and then everyone was like, "What have you done?" And then they actually came backstage to say hello and were absolutely lovely. So that was awesome. But yeah.
But I tell you, you have just become an iconic artist around the world. It's amazing because a lot of people in Australia, or a lot of artists in Australia, they are actually reasonable artists, but then they go overseas and they become so big and people don't even realise how big they are. But because I've followed you over all this time, glad so much time for your talent, that I've just realised how big you are. But today, that is. You were great then, but today you're absolutely so big. But listen, tell the people how you started. You obviously, where were you born, where you started, and of course, Bachelor of Music and Performance. But I'd rather you tell my listeners that. So tell them a little bit about Sophie Armstrong.
Okay, well, let's see. Both my parents were pianists.
Alive 90.5.
Oh,
that's all right. Sorry, I just pushed the wrong button there, Sophie. It's all right. All good.
It's all good. Yeah, well, my parents are both classical pianists and were booked to play together. That's how they met. So I grew up in a musical family. Been playing the violin since I was 3, and then I rebelled when I was 16. As most teenagers go through a bit of a wild phase, I rebelled and started playing in all kinds of different bands and things. And then I went back and did my degree at Sydney Conservatorium. And then I just didn't want to sit in the orchestra. I guess I'd grown up with music and I appreciate it, but I wanted to just, I wanted to try something different. And I started getting hired to play as a session musician for lots of different artists. And then that took me, all over the globe. And then, traveling gave me so much inspiration that's when I started, creating a bit of a mix, world beat style, and I worked on also, I guess, the travel blog as well. So I was kind of blogging about all these different cities and writing, music inspired by these different cities. So I'd call the style, I guess I'd call it world beat. It's not really world music, but yeah, it's kind of my own interpretation, and that's and doing my own unique thing. Everyone said you're crazy. If you want, to have a steady career, steady, income, you need to go sit in the orchestra, you need to be teaching. And I've definitely been teaching and coaching and doing all that sort of stuff, but I just, it wasn't my thing. Especially I have terrible ADHD. So sitting in an orchestra, having to concentrate for that many hours just wasn't going to be my thing. And I loved being on stage, loved connecting with people. And that's how I kind of got to where I was. And it was really the best thing because, that's where I really found my I guess, found what I do best, my thing. Yeah, and it worked for me.
But Sophie, you were so far ahead of your peers at the time. I do have to come back to that album. I remember you signed the album for me, and they were taking Rage were doing some filming on you at the time with the launch, and I picked up this album and I listened to it. And I couldn't believe how good it was when I listened to the Peace and Harmony track, for example, and in that you were singing, you composed most of it apart from a few of the songs, and apart from that, I remember you introduced hip hop into violin music and classical violin, and I said to myself, how bloody great is, I'm sorry about it, how great is this? I couldn't believe how far ahead you were compared to just normal violinists. And I said, she is going to be big. So I do come back to that particular CD because I play it all the time here. And every time I play it, I always get someone on there ringing me, or if I haven't heard some of your music lately, they'll ring me up and say, can I listen to Sophie and I want Peace and Harmony, please?
Really? Well, that was a fun album. It was so experimental, but yeah, definitely. There's lots of violinists now that are doing, lots of different, experimental type stuff. Like Miri Bennery's been doing hip hop for a long time. But I was definitely inspired by Nigel Kennedy and Vanessa Mae. This is such a long time ago, and there was not many people doing it. And I used to get slammed all the time, for doing what I was doing. But, sometimes when you do something different, that's just the way that it is. But it was fun. And
but I want to remind you did it almost 21 years ago.
I know.
Just remember that. That's what you've got to remember. 21 years ago. It's like Abbey Road and like Sgt. Pepper's. You were ahead of everybody else when it came to not just playing a violin at the time. And if they see you live, they wouldn't believe how good your act is live. But listen,
well, you know what? I have to say, I was wearing latex outfits custom made in the clubs across Europe before Lady Gaga. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, the beauty about this interview today. The interviews a long time ago, you didn't have social media. You can't Google and put in that in Google Sophie Armstrong and have a look at everything about Sophie. These days they just Google and they know everything about you. But they say, wow, this lady is. Sometimes I say, look, all you have to do to some of my listeners, just Google her. And then they ring me back a couple of shows later and say, "Wow, her act is amazing." I said, "Yeah, I told you, she's an icon." So but look, it is. That's what it is, and I'm so proud to be able to talk to you today, 20 years later, to say to myself, I listened to this lady, and she was so great. Now, look, a little bit down the track, you have gone into a few other directions. So, tell me a little bit about your the Woman Foundation. You're very big on a lot of those type of things. So, let's get into that part of your life.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Every Woman Foundation, it's always been a passion project of mine. I remember I started volunteering with some other musicians in a little shelter called Lou's Place, a great organisation in Sydney that provides support for vulnerable women. And we were volunteering our time and energy, and we were trying to, we were doing music classes, self-expression, and we were also we started the Every Woman Festival, which was launched at the Basement, which we trialled in Paris actually about a year before. Anyway, that grew from there to, in order to operate in Canada, we had to set up a foundation. So we were working in 4 different cities, and we had programs that branched out, based on everyone's talents. So beyond music, we had healing through self-expression and creative writing, songwriting, and these empowerment sort of exercises and classes and events. And then we had the festival that was celebrating, women in the respective communities where it was being held. And it raised money for other local women's charities, and it grew from there. And actually in 2014 or 15, I'd have to check, we was named one of Canada's top 100 women's organisations. It was pretty awesome, and it was basically run with volunteers, women like myself that wanted to help, and it. It's something that I've always been really, really passionate about,
Well, I can tell you that is correct, because 20 years ago you're on one of my shows and one of the other radio stations I was at, and we were talking about that, and you're just about to do a show with, I think it was the Golden Violin, and that had to do with this Women's Foundation movement at the time.
At the Opera House. No, that was the launch of one of my records at the Opera House. Yeah, that was totally separate, but that was a very cool, fun event too.
Now, also tell us about your Ovarian Cancer Canada, because you're involved with that too, because it's just amazing how much you've diversified into a lot of these areas, which are very important things that are happening. And of course, the cancer situation. But before I do that, just want to ask you one question. I've seen a photo on Facebook, or I think I've Googled it on your web page or whatever, and you were actually standing next to Olivia Newton-John. Of course, she passed away a little while ago. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about that night, because that must have been a magic night for you?
Yeah, so it felt way too early for her to have passed away. I was performing at the Precious Metal Ball, which supports the Olivia Newton-John Cancer Foundation, and I haven't got the name exactly right there, but and I just remember I went into the wrong change room backstage, and I went into her room, got to meet her, and she was just so kind and gracious and beautiful, and it was honored to perform on that night. And and then I happened to be working with a songwriter in Canada called Amy Sky, who was in I guess they called it a girl band with Olivia, and so I heard a lot about I followed what she was doing, I followed those records, and I was just so sad to hear that she'd passed. It just felt like it was too early, but
Well, I tell you what, she had a long struggle, didn't she? She really worked hard, and all the things she did for everybody else, and all the problems she had in her own life. But she was just an amazing lady when it comes to that, wasn't she? She was really, really. My God, I can't believe how she took her problems in her stride and was so incredible in regards to it. Now, up to now, I think you're into about 13 CDs, aren't you?
Gosh, yeah. I am. And when I changed my name from Sophie Serafino to Sophie Armstrong, I'm still yet to upload some of the old ones to distribution again. and that's just something I had to do personally because Armstrong's my birth name, and I just felt like it was the right thing to do. But yeah, I definitely, I had on the new website we're creating right now, I put a note and said, I am still finding some of these, because I would fall in love with a record and then I would decided that I hate it. And the good thing about being in charge of your own career, and this might be a good or a bad thing, but I'd be like, oh, I don't really like that record anymore. I'm going to delete it.
Yeah, well, that's very important. That's very important, because it's very, very true. Because so many artists have always said that, haven't they? Said, up to now I've been doing everything I've wanted to do, but now I want to do what I want to do, and that so many of artists have said that, and that is including, believe it or not, the late and great Elvis. He really didn't want to do all those things, and later on, 68 on, he put it for 68 supposed to, I'm never going to do anything I don't want to do again as far as music. So everybody says that. So you've got to that stage, which is amazing. And that's when artists have really made it, in my opinion, is when they can actually sit down and put down an album that they want to put down and not really what the record company's telling them to put down.
Yeah, I mean, you start trying to please everybody else. Although I do recall... I definitely tried to. I was always a bit of a people pleaser, but I mean, you always want to get booked and whatnot. But I do recall sitting down with a record executive who said, if you could just do the Andre Rieu thing, we'd really have something here. And I just, I'm like, I just can't. I'm sorry. No disrespect to him as an artist. I'm like, but I have to be me, Yeah. I just can't. And if that means that I'm not going to be as successful, well, that's okay. It's that kind of you just, it's like anything. Of course you have fans and all of that, but if you're just writing music to please other people, at the end of the day, you're not going to be the best you, and your fans, if you go out there and be who you are, you're going to find the right fans that love you, and then everybody's really happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know what? You are you. You haven't changed. You've done what you wanted to do. You've proved to people how good you are. You really don't have to prove to people anything anymore, because you're in that space now that really you're in demand everywhere, and it doesn't really matter. You're still wearing all those beautiful clothes and all that great jewelry. I can see you. People love all that stuff, which is fantastic, isn't it? You're really into it when it comes to style.
I love performing. I love being on stage, and I actually don't know if I shared. I was in a major car accident last year. I'm still in rehab, but that's why I haven't done a lot this year. I did do a solo performance with the Civic Symphony in April, which was awesome. Super duper short though, but I'm so excited to recover from this injury fully and get back to the stage next year.
So did you have any problems with your hands in that actual accident?
No, my right shoulder. I have to have a little surgery on it, and then it should be. Yeah, I've actually been really lucky. I've had all kinds of injuries, and it's never stopped me from performing. So, but you know what? I'm 41 now, and
a young 41. A young 41, and very happily married with 3 children, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's amazing. It's awesome being a mom. I actually, I took my kids the last time I toured before COVID. I took them with me, and I just chose things that would suit us as a family. We did our media meet and greet at. We were partnered with the Fairmont Hotels, and we did it in a suite in their hotel in Toronto. And they allowed the kids to be there. They even, served them, snacks and things, and gave them toys while we did the media meet and greet. I took them to television with me. Most people are, I am family oriented. I love my family. Family comes first. So.
Fantastic. It's great to hear. And let's get to just Australia. You're enjoying being back in Australia after COVID. Well, not after COVID. We're during COVID, but we're okay. We can actually get around. So how are you enjoying Australia?
Yeah, after the restrictions. You know what? As soon as we heard that we could travel without the kids potentially being quarantined, we booked tickets right away. It's amazing to be home. I knew I was missing home so much, but until now that I'm here, I'm like, I just don't, you don't realize how much it's, home feels like home. It smells like home. It's just being around family. I will never be more grateful for it, because I've never been restricted from being able to come whenever I wanted to. So I'm sure tons of people around the globe feel that way. There's lots of families that are multinational. So.
And how did you cope with COVID? Did you find it very hard?
Well, I guess like everybody at first, At first I was, picking up packages with tongs. I'm like, I can do this. It's 2 weeks. I got tons of activities for the kids. We didn't leave the house except, to go out in the backyard. And, I was like, yep, I can do this. But as it went on, it definitely got harder. And then, we were doing online shows and trying to, wrote an album and did a lot of stuff. But it definitely wore on. And then there was one point, I think in August of 2021 or 2020, I think it was August of 2020, we put on a show and we were going to live stream it. And I had and this is where I think you have to have grace and you just have to be kind, because everybody has different ideas and thoughts and feelings. Some people are like, screw this, let's just get out there and do it. And other people are frightened. We had a limit of 150 that could come in, but then my sound man was so frightened. He said that, if there's more than 30 people in here, I'm leaving. So I was like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? What do you do? It's hard to keep everybody happy. So we decided after that to hold off shows unless they were online. So, but that,
And with a bit of luck, you will be definitely back in Australia?
Yes, for sure, next year. Without any more weird, no more restrictions, and I'll be back. I actually had a few meetings. We're definitely planning on coming back and potentially performing this way again. But so long as there's no more restrictions or things coming up, for sure, definitely next year.
Now, I know you've got a lot of old friends here, so it would be wrong for me not to mention just a couple of names, because they wanted me to say, can you at least say hello to Sophie for us on the radio when you interview her? So, Sally Landon or Sally Street?
Oh, Sally, and I know you had Tansy on as well.
Is she loves your music. Absolutely loves your music. So,
I love her music. When I first heard her singing "I'm Every Woman" I'm like, wow. Why? What? She's a Whitney Houston. I only sing because I like writing songs, and I rarely sing, and I'm terrible at singing. I love playing. I'm a violinist, but when you listen to Tansy, she's a Whitney Houston. Yeah, she should amazing. Be.
And I had her on the other day, well, not the other day, a few months ago, and I said, just follow that dream, baby, follow that dream, because you're good enough to make it big in the music world. And one other person you don't know that well, but she's very big in Italy, and she's moved from Italy over here, and she's put out many albums, beautiful voice. She listens to your music all the time, Carlotta Sanatini.
Oh, I don't know that name.
So what you should do is Google Carlotta. She loves your music.
Carlotta.
And she knows Sally very well, and Tansy, and she says, oh my God, I listen to her all the time, all her music all the time. Beautiful jazz. She's moved very big over in Italy, but moved over here because she's found the love of her life, lives here now, does a lot of the Vanguard, around the Vanguard and all those areas where all the popular artists go to. And she said, she listens to your music all the time. So those three people I thought I'd mention on here, because I know that they listen to your music all the time and they love what you do.
Oh, the feeling is mutual. Yeah, Tansy and Sally. I look forward to, I don't know Carlotta, but I look forward to checking her out for sure. That sounds great. If you think she's great, then I'm sure she is.
And I tell you, she's just put out an album called Speak Love, Parla di Amore, and it's an absolutely brilliant album. And if you like that
Parla di Amore.
Yep,
bellissimo.
That's it. Now listen, the time's telling me I have to move on, but have a listen to this. I want one last question, very important. Have a think about it. If you could sit on this bench or a bench and chat for an hour to anyone past or present, who would it be?
Who would it be?
Yeah. Jesus. Who would you love to chat to, past or present?
I would love to chat to Jesus.
That, you're the second person that's told me that, which is amazing.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yep. That's who I'd choose.
Yep. And
close second my dad, because it's been a while since I've seen. No, I mean we're here together on vacation, but it's after COVID, definitely missed the family.
I think that COVID's brought a lot of people down back to earth, hasn't it?
Definitely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you realise what's important more than ever. I mean, you know what's important, but you realise, you think if I couldn't have this, but our generation's been so lucky and so privileged, we've never really been in a position where we can't have or do what we want if we work hard enough, It's, And so this has just been a wake-up call, I think.
Okay, so what we're going to do, I've got to say goodbye, and I've got to thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart for giving me these precious moments to speak to an icon like yourself, Sophie Armstrong. Now we're going to play one of your tracks, one of the ones that you sent me, number one, which I love. It's what I'd like you to do, I'd like to people remember you on air. So we're going to count you down for a promo. Right, so It's all right. We're on radio, but you're on a live 90.5, and I'll just count you down, and I'll play the track. And Sophie, again, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate the time you've given me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening to a live 95 FM. Crap, I messed that up. This is Sophie Armstrong, and whatever song of mine you're going to play next.
Okay, Sophie, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. This is our very own, or well, not really our very own because she was born in England, but we can call her our very own. We do that to a lot of artists these days. And this is her latest track called Unvanquished. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Dom. Have a great day.
And have a great trip home.
Thank you.
Alive 90.5. This is the Hit Mix Show, Top Hits Classic Dance Tracks. And as I said to you after that interview with Sophie, she put out this album 20 years ago. I'm almost always asked for this song, so I would like to play it for you. This is a double shot of Sophie off her album Colliding Worlds 20 years ago. Have a listen to the words, have a listen to the track. It is absolutely amazing. It's called Peace and Harmony. Our very own Sophie Armstrong. Alive 90.5, this is a special edition of the Hit Mix Show, Top Hits Classic Dance Tracks. And there it is. That track was put down almost 2002, I think it was, off Colliding Worlds. Have a listen to the words, put it into our society today, and how amazing is it?